Elena Matthews gripped the coffee pot with trembling hands. Her eyes darted nervously to the window for the third time in 5 minutes. The familiar black Ford F-150 circled the block again, its tinted windows hiding the driver she knew all too well. A cold wave of fear washed over her, turning her insides to ice despite the warm San Francisco morning. 8:37 a.m., Tuesday, July 12th, she thought to herself. Day 97 since I escaped. The lunch crowd at Harborview Cafe buzzed with energy. Business executives in tailored suits discussed deals over steaming cups of premium roast, completely unaware that her world was unraveling with each passing second. The chatter around her faded to a distant murmur as panic tightened her chest. Elena was 35, but in moments like these, she felt like the frightened 28-year-old who had first fallen for Ryan Blackwood's charm and confident smile. Before she understood the price of that smile, before the controlling behavior, before the first bruise, the coffee pot shook in her grip. Dark liquid sloshed dangerously close to the rim. She tried to steady her breathing the way her therapist had taught her. In for 4 counts, hold for 7, out for 8. But her lungs refused to cooperate as she saw the truck park across the street. The porcelain cup slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. Hot coffee splashed across her shoes and the hem of her uniform. The crash silenced conversations momentarily as heads turned toward the commotion. "I'm so sorry," Elena stammered, dropping to her knees to gather the broken pieces. Coffee burned her fingers, but she barely noticed. Her eyes swept the cafe, desperately searching for an exit, an ally, anything. "I'll clean this up right away." Margaret Chen, the 68-year-old owner of Harborview, emerged from the kitchen. Her experienced eyes took in Elena's pale face and trembling hands. She'd hired Elena 3 months ago without asking too many questions about the gaps in her resume or the haunted look in her eyes. Some stories needed time before they could be told. "Take your time, honey," Margaret said gently. "These things happen." Elena nodded gratefully, but her relief was short-lived. Through the large front windows, she watched Ryan step out of his truck. 6'2", broad shoulders filling out his expensive leather jacket, his confident stride that of a man who always got what he wanted. A heavy gold Rolex glinted on his wrist, the watch he'd given himself as a reward after a particularly profitable business deal. The same night he'd given her the scar above her right hip when she'd questioned where the money had really come from. Her gaze darted frantically around the cafe again. That's when she saw him. The man sat alone at a corner table, absorbed in the financial section of the Wall Street Journal. His presence commanded attention without demanding it. Dark hair with distinguished silver at the temples. Strong jawline softened by thoughtful eyes. A perfectly tailored charcoal suit without a tie. The uniform of a man powerful enough to make his own dress code. He looked up briefly, his piercing blue eyes meeting hers for just a moment before returning to his paper. Nathan Westbrook. Every server at Harborview knew him. CEO of Westbrook Technologies, a medical technology company worth billions. He came in every morning at precisely 7:45 a.m., ordered black coffee with just a touch of cream, and left a generous tip without fanfare. He treated every staff member with the same quiet respect, whether they were scrubbing tables or managing the books. Elena's racing mind had just registered his presence when her phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands to see a message from an unknown number. "Found you." The cafe door chimed. Ryan stepped inside his cologne, an expensive sandalwood blend she once found intoxicating, filled the air around him. His eyes, cold despite their warm brown color, swept the room before landing on her. His lips curved into a smile that held no warmth. "There's my girl," Ryan called out, his voice carrying just loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Been looking everywhere for you, baby. Time to come home." The words sent a chill through Elena's body. Home. The luxury apartment that had become her prison. The place where she'd learned to cover bruises with expensive makeup he'd bought her. His preferred form of apology. Elena backed away, but there was nowhere to run in the crowded space. Her breathing became shallow and rapid. She looked around, desperately trapped between the advancing threat and a room full of strangers who had no idea they were witnessing her worst nightmare returning. "I don't want to go anywhere with you, Ryan." Elena managed her voice barely above a whisper, but he kept advancing like a predator who'd cornered his prey. "Now don't make a scene, Elena." Ryan's voice held that familiar edge of control, the tone that used to make her stomach twist with fear. "You know how this ends. You always come back." The cafe grew quieter as other customers sensed the tension. Conversations died mid-sentence. A businessman in a Navy suit shifted uncomfortably. A college student removed her headphones. Elena felt her chest tightening, the familiar panic starting to take hold. 3 months of freedom, of finally sleeping without fear, and it was all about to disappear. That's when she made a choice that surprised even herself. Nathan Westbrook had been watching the exchange with growing concern, recognizing the dynamic immediately. He'd seen it before. A controlling ex who wouldn't accept that their victim had found freedom. When Elena's desperate eyes met his across the room, he didn't hesitate. He set down his newspaper and gave her the slightest nod. Without thinking, Elena moved toward Nathan's table, her legs shaking but determined. The coffee pot still clutched in her white-knuckled grip. "I'm sorry," she whispered as she reached him. "Please, I just need—" "It's okay," Nathan said quietly, understanding immediately. "Whatever you need." And then Elena did something that shocked everyone in the cafe, including herself. She set down the coffee pot, turned around and sat down on Nathan's lap, her body trembling against his as she wrapped her arms around his neck, playing the part of a loving girlfriend. Nathan's response was immediate and protective. His arm came around her waist, steady and reassuring, while his other hand gently touched her back. "Play along," he whispered against her ear, his voice calm and confident. "I'll protect you." Ryan stopped dead in his tracks, his face shifting from predatory confidence to confusion and then to anger. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, his voice rising. Nathan looked up at Ryan with the kind of quiet authority that came from years of commanding boardrooms and facing down hostile takeovers. "Is there a problem here?" His tone was polite but carried an underlying steel that made Ryan take an involuntary step back. "That's my girlfriend," Ryan snarled, but some of his confidence had evaporated in the face of Nathan's composed presence. "No," Elena said, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. "I'm not your anything anymore, Ryan." She felt Nathan's arm tighten protectively around her, giving her courage she'd forgotten she possessed. Ryan's face darkened, his hands clenching into fists. The heavy Rolex caught the light as he took a step forward. "You think some suit's going to protect you? You think you can just disappear on me?" The menace in his voice made several cafe patrons reach for their phones, sensing the situation was escalating beyond an awkward encounter. Elena felt herself shrinking inward, the old fear trying to reclaim her. For 2 years, Ryan had controlled every aspect of her life through intimidation and manipulation. Even after she'd finally escaped, she'd been looking over her shoulder, knowing he'd never stop hunting her. "I think," Nathan said, his voice carrying the quiet confidence of a man who'd never backed down from a fight, "that the lady has made her feelings clear, and I think you should respect that." "You don't know what you're getting into, buddy." Ryan stepped closer, trying to use his size to intimidate. "Elena and I have history, real history, not some fake little show she's putting on for you." That's when Elena spoke up, her voice stronger than it had been in years. "Our history is exactly why I left Ryan. Because you couldn't understand that love isn't about control or fear or making someone feel small. It's about trust and respect." She looked at Nathan, seeing something in his eyes that Ryan had never shown her, and feeling safe. Ryan's face contorted with rage. "Safe? I protected you. I took care of you when nobody else would. You isolated me." Elena said, the words tumbling out like a dam had burst. "You made me quit my job, cut ties with my friends, and made me believe I was worthless without you. That's not protection, that's imprisonment." The entire cafe had gone silent now, every person understanding they were witnessing something profound and painful. An elderly woman at a nearby table had tears in her eyes, remembering perhaps her own struggles from decades past. Nathan felt Elena's body trembling against his. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was the trembling of someone finally finding their voice after years of silence. "The police are on their way," Margaret said calmly from behind the counter, her phone still in hand. "I suggest you leave before they arrive." Ryan looked around the cafe, seeing every face turned toward him with disapproval and disgust. For the first time, he was the one who felt exposed and powerless. He stormed toward the door but turned back one last time. "This isn't over, Elena. It's never over." The cafe door slammed behind Ryan, but the tension remained thick in the air. Elena still sat on Nathan's lap, her whole body shaking now that the immediate threat had passed. She suddenly became aware of where she was, of what she'd done. Embarrassment flooded through her. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, starting to pull away. "I shouldn't have—" "Hey," Nathan said gently, his hand steady on her back. "You have nothing to apologize for. You were brilliant." 2 police officers arrived within minutes, their presence immediately calming the atmosphere. Elena slid into the chair beside Nathan as she gave her statement, her voice growing stronger with each detail. She showed them the restraining order she'd filed months ago, the documentation of Ryan's violations, the photos of bruises she'd been too ashamed to show anyone before. "We've been looking for him," Officer Martinez said, his expression grim. "There are 3 other women with active cases against him. Your testimony could help put him away for a long time." As the police finished their report and left to search for Ryan, the cafe slowly returned to normal. But Elena felt anything but normal. For the first time in years, she felt powerful, protected, and most surprisingly hopeful. "Thank you," she said to Nathan, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You didn't have to do that. You don't even know me." "I know enough," Nathan replied, his voice warm. "I know you're brave even when you don't feel like it. I know you make the best coffee in the city, and I know you deserve to feel safe." Elena laughed, a sound she'd almost forgotten how to make. "The coffee is actually terrible here. I've been trying to convince Margaret to get a better supplier for months." "Maybe you should open your own place," Nathan suggested, and something in his tone made her look at him more closely. "I happen to know something about starting businesses, and I have a feeling you'd be amazing at running your own." The idea had never occurred to her. Ryan had always told her she was too stupid for anything like that. But sitting here now, seeing herself through Nathan's eyes, she felt a spark of something she'd thought was gone forever. Ambition. "I couldn't possibly," she began. "Why not?" Nathan asked simply. "What's stopping you now?" Nathan's phone vibrated on the table. He glanced at it briefly, his expression shifting subtly. The message read, "Emergency board meeting, 3 p.m. Medicorp acquisition offer." He slipped the phone back into his pocket, his mind already processing the implications. Medicorp, one of the largest medical corporations in the country, had been trying to acquire Westbrook Technologies for months. Nathan had resisted, concerned about their ethical practices and what would happen to his company's mission of developing affordable medical diagnostic devices. "I should get back to work," he said, gathering his newspaper. He hesitated, then pulled out a business card and wrote a number on the back. "This is my personal cell. If Ryan comes back or if you just want to talk more about that cafe idea, call me anytime." Elena took the card, feeling its weight between her fingers. The heavy cardstock embossed with the Westbrook Technologies logo represented something she hadn't felt in years, a choice, her own choice. "Thank you," she said again, unable to find words adequate for what he'd done. Nathan smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. "Sometimes we all need someone in our corner, Elena, even if just for a moment." As he walked out of the cafe, Nathan unconsciously touched the watch on his wrist, a Patek Philippe with an inscription on the back that read, "Time is too precious to waste." His late wife, Catherine, had given it to him on their last anniversary before the cancer took her. 5 years had passed, but the weight of the watch still reminded him of promises kept and broken. Nathan didn't notice the black sedan parked half a block away, or the man inside with a telephoto lens capturing his exit from the cafe. Back inside, Elena clutched Nathan's business card, still warm from his pocket. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to imagine a future beyond survival, a future where she might thrive. Margaret approached, placing a gentle hand on Elena's shoulder. "You okay, honey?" Elena nodded, surprising herself with how true it felt. "I think I might be." "Good," Margaret said with a knowing smile. "Now I couldn't help overhearing. Is this true about you wanting to open your own cafe?" Elena blushed. "It's just a crazy idea." "The craziest ideas are usually the best ones," Margaret replied. "My late husband was a cop for 30 years. He always said you can tell a person's character in a crisis. That man who just left good character. And you, my dear, have the kind of strength that builds something lasting." Elena's eyes widened slightly at the mention of Margaret's husband being a police officer. She unconsciously touched her purse where she kept her father's badge, the one possession of his she'd managed to keep when Ryan had forced her to sell nearly everything else. Her father, Detective Michael Reeves, had been dead for 7 years. Car accident, they'd said. But Elena had always harbored doubts. "Thank you, Margaret. That means a lot coming from you." The rest of Elena's shift passed in a blur. The adrenaline from the morning's confrontation left her exhausted, but strangely invigorated. Each time the door chimed, she tensed, half expecting Ryan to return, but he didn't. When she finally clocked out at 4 p.m., Elena checked her phone and found 3 missed calls from an unknown number. No messages. She deleted the notification with a trembling finger and pulled her jacket tighter around herself as she stepped outside. The July sun still hung high in the San Francisco sky, but Elena felt a chill as she scanned the street for Ryan's truck. Not seeing it, she began the 6-block walk to her apartment, a small studio she'd rented under a different last name when she'd first arrived in the city. Her mind kept returning to Nathan Westbrook and his unexpected suggestion about opening her own cafe. Before Ryan, she'd been pursuing a business degree at UC Berkeley. She'd had plans, ambitions, dreams. Ryan had systematically dismantled them all, convincing her she wasn't smart enough, strong enough, good enough to succeed on her own. But today, sitting across from Nathan, she glimpsed the person she used to be. The woman who had once been at the top of her class, who had mapped out a 5-year business plan for her senior project, who had believed in her own potential. Elena reached her apartment building and climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her unit. The security was minimal, a far cry from the doorman-guarded luxury high-rise she'd shared with Ryan, but it was hers, paid for with money she earned herself. She locked the door behind her and went through her safety routine, checking the windows, the closet, the shower. Only when she was certain she was alone did she allow her shoulders to relax. Elena sat on the edge of her bed and pulled out Nathan's business card again. The embossed letters caught the light: Nathan Westbrook, founder and CEO, Westbrook Technologies. She turned it over to see his personal number written in a strong, decisive hand. Then she reached into her purse and extracted her father's police badge. Detective Michael Reeves, San Francisco Police Department. Her thumb traced the familiar contours of the shield. Her father had been her hero, strong, principled, dedicated to justice. When he died in what the department called a tragic accident, something inside her had broken. She'd been vulnerable when she met Ryan just months later, an easy target. Her father would have seen through Ryan immediately, would have protected her from him, but he wasn't there and she'd had to learn to protect herself. Elena placed the badge on her nightstand and pulled out her laptop. For the first time in years, she opened a new document and began to type Business Plan Sunrise Cafe. Across town, Nathan Westbrook stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, gazing out at the Bay Bridge spanning the water. The emergency board meeting had just concluded, and he was still processing the implications. Victor Mercer, CEO of Medicorp, had increased his acquisition offer to $4 billion, nearly twice what Westbrook Technologies was currently valued at. The board was practically salivating at the prospect. Nathan's assistant, David, entered after a brief knock. The research team sent over the latest data on the cardiac monitoring system, and Victor Mercer's office called again. He wants to meet privately before the formal negotiations begin. Nathan nodded, his reflection in the glass looking more tired than he cared to admit. Schedule the meeting for tomorrow morning. And David, I want you to pull together everything we have on Medicorp's safety record. News articles, lawsuits, FDA complaints, everything. May I ask why? David inquired, his pen poised over his tablet. Nathan turned from the window. Something doesn't feel right about this deal. Victor Mercer has a reputation for acquiring companies with promising medical technologies and then cutting corners on safety testing. I want to know what we're really dealing with. Of course. David made a note. Anything else? Nathan hesitated. Yes, there was a detective with the SFPD about 7 years ago, Michael Reeves. See if you can find anything about him, specifically any cases he might have been working on related to medical corporations or device safety. David raised an eyebrow but didn't question further. I'll have it for you first thing tomorrow. After David left, Nathan again touched the watch on his wrist, a habit he'd developed in moments of decision. Catherine had given it to him just months before her diagnosis. The inscription had been her gentle rebuke for his workaholic tendencies. Time is too precious to waste. He hadn't listened well enough, had continued building the company while she grew sicker, believing there would be time later for vacations and quiet moments. By the time he realized his mistake, it was too late. The irony wasn't lost on him that Catherine had died from complications related to a faulty heart monitoring device, the very type of equipment his company now developed with obsessive attention to safety protocols. Her death had transformed his mission from success to significance. Nathan's phone chimed with a message from an unknown number. This is Elena from the cafe. I just wanted to say thank you again, and maybe talk about that business idea if you were serious. A small smile touched his lips as he typed his reply. I'm always serious about good coffee and good business. Breakfast tomorrow, 8 a.m. at Bayside Bistro, neutral territory. Her response came quickly. I'll be there. Nathan set down his phone and returned to the window. The sun was beginning its descent toward the Pacific, casting long shadows across the city. For the first time in years, he felt something stir within him, a sense of purpose beyond the company, beyond the memory of Catherine, a chance to help someone else find their way back from darkness. He hadn't been able to save his wife, but perhaps he could help Elena rebuild her life. What Nathan didn't know was that this simple act of kindness was about to pull him into a web of corporate corruption and long-buried secrets that would threaten everything he had built and everyone he was growing to care about. Meanwhile, in a luxury penthouse across the city, Victor Mercer studied photographs of Nathan leaving Harborview Cafe. Next to them lay an old case file labeled Reeves Investigation Terminated. Victor picked up his phone and dialed. "We may have a problem with Westbrook. He's connected with the Reeves girl." He listened briefly to the response. "No, not yet, but keep Ryan Blackwood close. He might still be useful." As night fell over San Francisco, three people lay awake, their lives now set on a collision course. Elena clutching her father's badge, dreaming of a cafe named Sunrise. Nathan reviewing Medicorp documents, searching for the truth. And Victor Mercer plotting to protect secrets worth killing for. Day 97 since Elena's escape was ending. Day one of a new and dangerous chapter was about to begin. Morning light streamed through the windows of Bayside Bistro, casting golden patterns across the polished wooden tables. Elena arrived 15 minutes early, her nerves making punctuality a necessity rather than a choice. She selected a corner table with a clear view of both entrances and the street outside. Old habits from months of vigilance. The bistro exuded a warmth that Harborview Cafe lacked. Exposed brick walls adorned with local artwork. Fresh flowers on each table. The aroma of freshly baked bread mingling with the premium coffee. Elena inhaled deeply, allowing the scents to calm her racing heart. She wore her best outfit, dark jeans, a cream blouse, and the single piece of jewelry Ryan hadn't selected for her, a silver pendant that had belonged to her mother. Her resume sat in a folder beside her. Though Nathan hadn't asked for it, Elena wanted him to see her as more than a waitress, more than a victim. At precisely 8 o'clock, Nathan Westbrook entered the bistro. Unlike yesterday's business attire, he wore dark slacks and a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. The casual elegance suited him. Several patrons glanced up in recognition, but Nathan's focus remained on finding Elena. Their eyes met across the room. His smile was genuine as he approached her table. "You found the place," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "I did my research," Elena replied, a small act of independence she was quietly proud of. Nathan noticed the folder on the table but didn't mention it. Instead, he signaled to the server, ordered black coffee, and turned his attention back to Elena. "How are you feeling after yesterday?" Elena considered deflecting with a casual, finding the automatic response she'd perfected during her time with Ryan. But something about Nathan's direct gaze encouraged honesty. "Shaken," she admitted, but also stronger somehow. Standing up to Ryan was terrifying, but it felt like reclaiming a piece of himself. Nathan nodded. "Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about facing what frightens you anyway." Their conversation paused as the server brought their coffees. Elena wrapped her hands around the warm ceramic mug, drawing comfort from its solidity. "You mentioned opening my own cafe yesterday," she said after a moment. "Was that just something you said in the moment, or—" "I never say things I don't mean," Nathan interrupted gently, "especially about business." Elena slid her resume folder across the table. "Before Ryan, I was studying business administration at Berkeley, senior year, top of my class. My final project was a business plan for an independent cafe." Nathan's eyebrows rose slightly as he reviewed her credentials. "This is impressive, Elena. Why didn't you finish?" Elena stared into her coffee. "Ryan convinced me it was a waste of time, that I'd never succeed on my own. Eventually, I believed him." Anger flickered across Nathan's features before he controlled it. Well, he was wrong. He continued examining her resume, asking thoughtful questions about her experience and vision. For nearly an hour, they discussed business models, startup costs, location strategies, and supplier relationships. Elena felt her confidence growing with each question she answered competently. Then mid-sentence, Nathan suddenly tensed, his eyes fixed on something over her shoulder. Elena turned to see what had captured his attention. Through the large front windows, she spotted a distinguished man in his late 50s exiting a sleek black Mercedes. Tall and imposing with silver hair, he wore an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent. "Victor Mercer," Nathan said quietly, his voice tight. Before Elena could respond, Nathan was on his feet, taking her hand. "Come with me, now." He led her quickly toward the back of the bistro, through a doorway marked "Employees Only," and into a narrow service corridor. The bustle of the kitchen could be heard nearby. I'm sorry, Nathan said, keeping his voice low. Victor Mercer is the CEO of Medicorp, the company trying to acquire mine. If he saw us together, it would raise questions I'm not ready to answer. Elena felt her stomach twist. Questions about me, about why I'm meeting with anyone outside official channels right now. Nathan checked his watch, the Patek Philippe she'd noticed yesterday. The acquisition talks are at a critical stage. Mercer has spies everywhere looking for any leverage. The proximity in the narrow hallway made Elena acutely aware of Nathan's presence. His cologne carried notes of cedar and bergamot, subtle but distinctly masculine. She could see the fine lines around his eyes, evidence of both smiles and worries over his 42 years. Why are you telling me this? She asked. You barely know me. Nathan hesitated, then touched his watch, a gesture she was beginning to recognize as a habit. There's something about Medicorp that doesn't sit right with me. Their ethics are questionable at best. They've been accused of covering up faulty medical equipment in the past. And you're considering selling your company to them? Elena couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. The board is, Nathan corrected. I've been resisting. That's why Mercer is pushing so hard. He knows I'm the obstacle. A kitchen worker passed by, giving them a curious look. Nathan checked his watch again. We should wait a few minutes before going back out, he said. Mercer rarely stays in one place long. Elena nodded, then seized the opportunity to ask about something that had been nagging at her. Your watch. You touch it when you're making decisions. Is there a story there? Nathan looked surprised, then gave a small, sad smile. My wife Catherine gave it to me 5 years ago, just before she was diagnosed with cancer. He turned the watch to show the inscription on the back. Time is too precious to waste. The irony wasn't lost on me when she died 8 months later. I'm so sorry, Elena said softly. The worst part, Nathan continued, his voice dropping even lower. She died because of a faulty heart monitoring device. The company knew it had problems but covered up the data. By the time the recall happened, it was too late for Catherine. Elena felt her breath catch. The personal toll reflected in Nathan's eyes transformed him from successful businessman to grieving husband in an instant. Is that why you started Westbrook Technologies? I'd already founded it, but her death changed our mission. We developed diagnostic equipment with triple redundancy safety protocols. Every device undergoes testing far beyond FDA requirements. His jaw tightened, and that's exactly what Mercer wants to dismantle to cut costs. Elena suddenly understood the weight he carried. So this acquisition isn't just business for you. No, Nathan said simply, it's personal. They emerged from this hallway after ensuring Mercer had gone. Returning to their table, they found their coffee cold. Neither minded. The conversation had shifted to something more significant than business plans. As they prepared to leave, Elena's phone buzzed with a text. She checked it automatically, then froze. Unknown number. I see you making new friends. Remember, you're still mine. Nathan noticed her reaction immediately. Ryan? Elena nodded, scanning the street outside with renewed fear. He's watching me. Nathan's expression hardened. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Let me walk you home. No, Elena said quickly. If he sees you with me outside the cafe, he might... I'm not concerned about Ryan Blackwood, Nathan interrupted, a steely edge to his voice. Elena hesitated, then nodded. Having Nathan beside her as they walked the 6 blocks to her apartment building brought both comfort and anxiety. Ryan was unpredictable when jealous, but with each step she reminded herself that she was no longer under his control. This is me, she said when they reached the modest 3-story building. No doorman, no security cameras, just a simple keypad entry system. Nathan frowned, taking in the limited security. Elena, I know we just met yesterday, but I need to ask, would you consider moving somewhere with better security? I could help you find a place. The suggestion triggered an immediate defensive reaction. I can't afford better, and I won't accept charity. Not charity, Nathan clarified. An investment in your future business. Consider it in advance. Elena shook her head. Thank you, but no. I need to do this my way. The determination in her voice surprised even herself. Nathan nodded, respecting her decision. Then at least let me help you improve what you have. Better locks, a security camera for your door. This felt different, practical help rather than rescue. I could accept that, Elena conceded. As they said goodbye, Nathan handed her a small USB drive. Some templates for business plans. I thought they might help with your cafe idea. Elena felt a rush of gratitude that went beyond the practical value of the gift. It was acknowledgement of her capability, her potential, something Ryan had systematically undermined. Thank you, she said, meaning it for far more than the USB drive. I have meetings all day, but call me if you need anything, Nathan said. As he turned to leave, he added, and Elena, you're stronger than you realize. After Nathan departed, Elena spent the morning working on her business plan. The templates he'd provided were comprehensive, guiding her through financial projections, marketing strategies, and operational logistics. Hours passed as she lost herself in building her dream on paper. Around noon, her phone rang. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. When it rang again, immediately anxiety surged through her. Ryan never gave up easily. On the third call, she answered with a terse, "Stop calling me Ryan." "Elena Reeves," an unfamiliar male voice replied. "This is Detective Garcia with SFPD. We need to talk about Ryan Blackwood." 30 minutes later, Elena sat in an interview room at the police station. Detective Garcia, a veteran officer with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, explained that they'd located Ryan's truck abandoned near the waterfront. Inside, they'd found blood evidence and items potentially linking him to a convenience store robbery last week. "We need to know when you last saw him," Garcia said, "and if he mentioned any plans to leave town." Elena recounted yesterday's confrontation at Harborview. When she mentioned Nathan's intervention, Garcia made a note. "Nathan Westbrook, the tech guy?" Elena nodded. "He helped me when Ryan showed up." Garcia's expression remained neutral, but something in his eyes changed. "Interesting coincidence." "What do you mean?" Elena asked. The detective hesitated before answering. 7 years ago, your father was investigating a case involving medical device safety regulations, specifically companies covering up known defects to avoid recalls. Elena felt her heart skip. What does that have to do with Nathan Westbrook? Nothing directly, but the primary target of the investigation was Medicorp before your father's accident, and now Westbrook Technologies is in acquisition talks with them. Garcia studied her reaction carefully. Did Westbrook mention any connection to your father? No, Elena replied truthfully. He doesn't even know my last name. Garcia nodded, seemingly satisfied with her answer. If Ryan contacts you, call us immediately. And Elena, be careful who you trust right now. The warning followed her as she left the station feeling more unsettled than when she'd arrived. Her father's investigation, Medicorp, Nathan's company, Ryan's disappearance. These separate threads seemed to be weaving together into something ominous. Elena walked for nearly an hour, trying to clear her head. Without conscious intent, she found herself in North Beach, San Francisco's Little Italy. The neighborhood hummed with energy, tourists mingling with locals, the aroma of espresso and fresh pasta filling the air. She paused outside a vacant storefront. The location was perfect corner position, with large windows close to Washington Square Park. A dusty "For Lease" sign hung in the window alongside a phone number. On impulse, Elena called. To her surprise, the property owner answered immediately and agreed to meet her in 20 minutes to show the space. The interior was larger than it appeared from outside. High ceilings with exposed wooden beams, brick walls reminiscent of Bayside Bistro, concrete floors that needed refinishing but had character. At the back, a commercial kitchen space needed updating but had good bones. Previous tenant ran an Italian bakery for 15 years, the owner, Mr. Rossi, explained. Retired to Florida last month. Place needs work, but the location is gold. Elena nodded, already envisioning what it could become. Warm yellow walls, local artwork, a long counter with glass cases for pastries, small tables and comfortable chairs, a community board where locals could post flyers. The rent, she asked, expecting a figure far beyond her reach. Mr. Rossi named a sum that, while substantial, wasn't impossible with proper financing. I have others interested, he added. Corporate chains mostly, but I'd prefer a local business. My family's owned this building since 1952. Elena took a deep breath. I want to open a cafe, Sunrise Cafe, quality coffee, fresh pastries, a place where people feel at home. Rossi's weathered face crinkled into a smile. Like the old days before all these chain coffee shops. Exactly, Elena agreed, warming to her vision. I'll need time to secure financing, but I'm very interested. 2 weeks, Rossi offered. I can hold it that long. Bring me a solid business plan, proof of financing, and we'll talk. After exchanging contact information, Elena stepped back onto the sunlit street, feeling a curious mixture of exhilaration and terror. She was actually doing this, planning a future, taking control. She pulled out her phone to call Nathan, wanting to share her discovery, but hesitated. Detective Garcia's warning echoed in her mind. The mysterious connections between her father's death and Medicorp gave her pause. Instead, she texted, "Found perfect location for Sunrise Cafe. Need to talk about financing options." Also, something strange came up. Police are looking for Ryan and mentioned my father's old case involving Medicorp. Nathan's response came quickly. Don't discuss this over text. Meet me at my office, 1 Financial Plaza, 42nd floor, 3 p.m. The Westbrook Technologies headquarters occupied 3 floors of one of San Francisco's iconic skyscrapers. The lobby featured soaring ceilings, marble floors, and a security desk that screened all visitors with corporate efficiency. Elena felt distinctly out of place in her casual attire as she approached the reception desk. Before she could speak, a young man in a tailored suit approached. Ms. Matthews, I'm David Chen, Mr. Westbrook's assistant. He asked me to escort you up. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor was swift and silent. Elena used the moments to compose herself, uncomfortably aware of the contrast between this world and the one she normally inhabited. David led her through a modern workspace where employees occupied ergonomic workstations amidst abundant natural light. The atmosphere was focused but not tense productive energy, rather than anxious hustle. Nathan's corner office offered breathtaking views of the Bay Bridge and the water beyond. Floor-to-ceiling windows on 2 sides created the illusion of floating above the city. Minimalist furniture and warm wood tones softened the otherwise sleek space. Nathan stood when she entered, coming around his desk to greet her. Thank you for coming. He gestured to a seating area by the windows away from his desk. We can talk more freely here. Once they were seated, Nathan's expression turned serious. Tell me exactly what the police said about your father and Medicorp. Elena recounted her conversation with Detective Garcia, including his warning about being careful whom she trusted. Nathan listened without interrupting, his gaze intense. When she finished, he was silent for several moments. Your father was Michael Reeves, he finally said. It wasn't a question. Elena's surprise must have shown on her face. I asked my team to research him after you mentioned yesterday that your father had been a police detective, Nathan explained. I didn't know he was investigating Medicorp until an hour ago when David brought me this. He retrieved a file from his desk and handed it to her. Inside were newspaper clippings about her father's fatal car accident, along with fragments of what appeared to be case notes. Where did you get this? Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. My security team has sources in various departments. Nathan's tone suggested this wasn't unusual. Elena, I need to ask you something important. Do you have any of your father's personal effects? Notes, files, anything related to his work? Elena thought of the badge on her nightstand. Just his badge. Ryan made me sell most of my father's things when we moved in together. The memory still brought shame and anger. Why? Nathan hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. 5 years ago, my wife Catherine died from complications after receiving a faulty heart monitor. The manufacturer knew about defects but covered them up to avoid a costly recall. Medicorp, Elena whispered, the connection suddenly clear. Nathan nodded grimly. I've spent years trying to prove it, but they've buried the evidence. Your father was investigating them for similar violations when he died in that accident. The implication hung heavy in the air between them. You think they killed my father? Elena said, her voice steadier than she expected. I think it's a possibility we can't ignore, Nathan replied, especially now that Ryan has disappeared after connecting with you again. Elena's brow furrowed. What does Ryan have to do with this? Nathan touched his watch, a gesture she now recognized preceded difficult disclosures. My security team found something else. Ryan Blackwood has been on Medicorp's payroll for the past 3 years, working as a consultant. The room seemed to tilt around Elena. What are you saying? I'm saying Ryan may have been sent to watch you, to ensure you never discovered anything your father might have left behind. Nathan's voice was gentle but firm. His reappearance now, just as Medicorp is pushing to acquire my company, can't be coincidence. Elena felt ill. The man she'd lived with, shared a bed with, had been reporting on her. The violation was almost too much to process. I need to see your father's badge, Nathan continued. There might be something there, a clue, a key, something your father hid before he died. Elena nodded numbly. It's at my apartment. We should go now, Nathan said, standing. And Elena, I don't think you should stay there tonight. If Ryan is working for Medicorp, your apartment isn't safe. This time she didn't argue. They took Nathan's car, a sleek black Audi that moved through traffic with quiet power. Elena directed him to her building, her mind still reeling from the revelations of the past hour. The pieces were fitting together in a disturbing pattern. Her father's fatal accident after investigating at Medicorp. Ryan's mysterious income and insistence that she sell her father's possessions. The timing of his reappearance as Nathan resisted the Medicorp acquisition. When they reached her apartment building, Nathan insisted on accompanying her upstairs. As they approached her door, Elena immediately sensed something wrong. The door was slightly ajar, wood splintered around the lock. Nathan put out a hand to stop her from entering. "Wait here," he whispered. "No," Elena replied firmly. "This is my home." Together, they pushed the door open. The apartment had been systematically ransacked. Drawers emptied onto the floor. Furniture upended. Even the mattress had been slashed open, foam stuffing scattered across the room. Elena moved immediately to the nightstand where she'd left her father's badge. The drawer had been pried open, its contents dumped out. The badge was gone. "No, no, no," she whispered frantically, searching through the scattered items on the floor. "Elena," Nathan called from the bathroom. "Look at this." Written on the bathroom mirror in what appeared to be lipstick was a message, "Time's running out." Elena felt her knees weaken. Nathan caught her arm, supporting her as the implications sank in. "Ryan," she whispered. "We need to leave," Nathan said urgently. "Grab anything essential, quickly." Elena moved in a daze, stuffing clothes and personal documents into a backpack. Her laptop was missing, along with the USB drive Nathan had given her that morning. 7 years of running her father's badge through her fingers for comfort, and now it was gone. As they hurried back to Nathan's car, Elena noticed a black SUV with tinted windows parked across the street. A man in a dark suit watched them from behind the wheel. "Nathan," she said, nodding toward the vehicle. "I see him," Nathan replied calmly, opening the passenger door for her. "One of Mercer's security team. He's not trying to hide." Once they were driving away, Nathan made a call through the car's system. "David, I need the safe house prepared. 2 people, security protocol Alpha. We'll be there in 30 minutes. Elena stared out the window as Nathan drove them across the city toward Sausalito. The sky had darkened with incoming fog matching her mood. Everything she'd believed about her relationship with Ryan, already tarnished by his abuse, was now revealed as something even more sinister. "My father must have found something," she said finally. "Something that threatened Medicorp." Nathan nodded. "And they'll do anything to keep it buried." "Why are you helping me?" Elena asked, turning to study his profile. "You're risking everything, your company, your reputation. You barely know me." Nathan was silent for a long moment. "When Catherine died, I promised myself I'd never let another family suffer the same way if I could prevent it. Your father was trying to expose the truth. I have resources that can help finish what he started." He touched his watch briefly before continuing. "Besides, I recognize something in you, Elena. The same determination I had after losing Catherine. The need to make things right." They crossed the Golden Gate Bridge, the fog so thick now that the iconic orange towers were barely visible. The safe house turned out to be a modern cottage nestled in the hills of Sausalito overlooking the bay. Secure gates, cameras, and a sophisticated alarm system protected the property. Inside, the space was comfortable but functional. Someone had stocked the refrigerator with food and the closets with basic necessities. "You keep a fully stocked safe house ready at all times?" Elena asked, surveying the space. Nathan's smile was grim. "In my line of work, corporate espionage is a constant threat. This place has saved several of our research projects from being stolen." He showed her to a bedroom with an attached bath, then excused himself to make calls. Elena took the opportunity to shower, trying to wash away the violation of her home being invaded. When she emerged dressed in borrowed clothes that fit surprisingly well, she found Nathan in the kitchen, preparing coffee. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, sitting at the kitchen island. "About my father's badge." Nathan set a mug of coffee before her and waited. "For years I've carried it with me. Held it when I was scared or shaken, but I never really examined it closely until last night after we talked." Elena wrapped her hands around the warm mug. There was a small seam along the edge that didn't match the rest of the design. When I pressed it, a tiny compartment opened in the back. Nathan leaned forward. "What was inside?" "A memory card," Elena replied. "Micro SD. I didn't have a way to read it, so I left it in there. Now it's gone." Nathan's expression darkened. "That's why they took the badge. Your father hid evidence where no one would think to look." "I shouldn't have left it at the apartment," Elena said, self-recrimination heavy in her voice. "You couldn't have known," Nathan assured her. He pulled out his phone and began typing rapidly. "I'm having my security team review all surveillance footage near your building. Maybe we can identify who broke in." As evening descended, they worked together at the dining table, Nathan on his laptop reviewing Medicorp documents, Elena reconstructing her business plan from memory, the activity providing a necessary distraction from their circumstances. "Tell me about your cafe idea," Nathan said after they had been working in companionable silence for over an hour. Elena described the North Beach location, her vision for Sunrise Cafe, and the conversation with Mr. Rossi. You have 2 weeks to secure financing, Nathan asked. Elena nodded. Impossible, I know, especially with no credit history and no collateral. Nathan considered this. Not impossible. Challenging, but not impossible. Even if I get a loan, how can I think about opening a cafe with all this happening? Elena gestured vaguely, encompassing their current situation. Perhaps that's exactly why you should, Nathan replied. The cafe represents your future, your freedom. Don't let them take that from you too. His words resonated deeply with something inside Elena. The cafe wasn't just a business, it was reclamation of everything Ryan and Metacorp had tried to steal from her. The ringing of Nathan's phone interrupted their conversation. His expression grew serious as he listened to the caller. Are you certain? Send the footage to my secure email immediately. When he ended the call, his face was grim. My security team identified the person who broke into your apartment. It wasn't Ryan. Then who? Elena asked, dread building in her stomach. Nathan turned his laptop toward her, displaying security footage from her apartment building. The grainy image showed a tall man in a dark suit entering the front door, his face partially obscured. That's Jacob Pierce, Nathan said quietly. Head of security for Metacorp, Victor Mercer's personal enforcer. So Ryan isn't working alone, Elena whispered. Ryan may not be working at all anymore, Nathan replied, his implication clear. The blood they found in his truck. Elena felt a chill despite her complicated feelings about Ryan. They'd kill him, their own employee. Loose ends, Nathan said grimly. Ryan served his purpose. Now he's a liability. The reality of what they were facing settled over Elena like a physical weight. These people had potentially killed her father, Nathan's wife, and now possibly Ryan, all to protect corporate profits. What do we do? She asked. Nathan closed his laptop. Tomorrow morning I have the final board meeting about the Metacorp acquisition. I was planning to vote against it, but now I'm thinking I should appear to cooperate. Why? To buy us time. If Mercer believes I'm no longer an obstacle, he might let his guard down. Nathan's expression was resolute. Meanwhile, we need to find what your father discovered. Something on that memory card was worth killing for. Elena nodded slowly, a determination building within her that matched Nathan's. I want justice for my father. And for your wife. Then we'll get it, Nathan promised. Together. As night fully descended, the fog obscured the bay entirely. Through the safe house windows, only darkness was visible, reflecting their own images. Back at them, the waitress and the billionaire, now allies against a common enemy. What neither of them could see were the headlights slowly winding up the hill toward the safe house, or the man behind the wheel who had followed them from San Francisco. A man who had once promised to love Elena forever and now had been ordered to silence her permanently. Ryan Blackwood's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he approached his target. The dried blood on his temple, his own blood planted in his truck, as part of an elaborate frame, had crusted into a dark reminder of his precarious position. He had one chance to redeem himself with Mercer. One final job to perform. He reached into his jacket, feeling the cold metal of the gun they'd given him. Tonight would determine everyone's fate. Dawn broke over San Francisco Bay, painting the water in hues of gold and crimson. Nathan Westbrook stood at his penthouse window, watching the sun rise over the city he'd called home for 15 years. In 3 hours, the board would vote on the Metacorp acquisition. In 3 hours, he would either save his company's soul or lose everything he'd built. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his normally clean-shaven face. He hadn't slept. After driving Elena to the highway on-ramp last night and making sure she was safely on her way to Monterey, he'd returned to his penthouse to prepare for today's battle. The evidence they'd found on Michael Reeves' USB drive was damning, but not definitive enough to convince a board already salivating over Mercer's $5 billion offer. Nathan's phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number, the prepaid phone he'd given Elena. Reached Garcia's place safely. He has everything Dad left behind. Be careful today. Relief washed through him. At least she was safe. He typed a brief reply. Good, stay there. We'll join you after the meeting. He slid the phone into his pocket, then opened his safe and removed Catherine's medical file. The official cause of her death was listed as heart failure, but the detailed autopsy had found a more specific cause. The cardiac monitor that was supposed to warn of any irregularities had malfunctioned, failing to alert medical staff until it was too late. The model Metascan CM4 manufactured by a Metacorp subsidiary. Nathan tucked the file into his briefcase, alongside printouts of the most damning evidence from Reeves' investigation. Today wasn't just about business. It was about justice for Catherine, for Elena's father, and for countless others who had suffered because profits were prioritized over lives. As he adjusted his tie, Catherine's favorite, a deep blue silk that matched his eyes, Nathan's thoughts drifted to Elena. In just 2 days, she had transformed from a stranger into something more, a partner, perhaps something deeper given time. She had shown more courage in standing up to Ryan than many executives he knew showed in boardrooms, and she had trusted him with her father's legacy just as he was trusting her with Catherine's. Nathan's doorbell rang at precisely 7:30 a.m. His driver, Frank, was right on time. As they rode the elevator down to the garage level, Frank glanced at him in the mirrored wall. "Big day, Mr. Westbrook." "The biggest," Nathan confirmed, his voice steady despite the stakes. The black Audi waited in its reserved space, polished to a mirror shine. Frank held the door as Nathan slid into the back seat, then took his place behind the wheel. "Westbrook Tower, sir." "Yes, and Frank, be alert today. We might have some unwanted attention." The driver's eyes met Nathan's in the rearview mirror, understanding passing between them. Frank was ex-military and had been with Nathan for 8 years. He knew when his boss was concerned about more than traffic. "Understood, sir." The morning commute crawled through San Francisco's congested streets. Nathan used the time to review his notes one final time, organizing his thoughts for the presentation he would make to the board. The case against Medicorp needed to be airtight. Emotional appeals wouldn't sway the investors and venture capitalists who made up the majority of Westbrook Technologies' board. As they turned onto Market Street, Nathan noticed a black sedan 3 cars back. It had been there since they left his building. "Frank, I think we're being followed." Black Lexus tinted windows. Without comment, Frank made an unexpected turn down a side street. The Lexus followed. 2 more random turns confirmed it. They were definitely being tailed. "Evasive maneuver, sir," Frank asked, his voice calm but his posture alert. "No, let them follow. Just get me to the tower in one piece." Nathan's mind raced. Mercer was having him watched, which meant the businessman was worried. That was good. Worried men made mistakes. The Audi pulled into the underground parking garage of Westbrook Tower at 8:15 a.m. The black Lexus drove past the entrance, not following them in. As Frank opened his door, Nathan placed a hand on the older man's shoulder. "Thank you, Frank. Be careful leaving here." "Always am, sir." Frank's weathered face creased in a brief smile. "Good hunting in there." The executive elevator whisked Nathan to the top floor. His assistant, David, waited by the reception desk, tablet in hand and concern etched on his young face. "They're already gathering in the boardroom," he said without preamble. Mercer arrived 15 minutes ago with his legal team, and the investors are restless. News of the increased offer leaked overnight. The stock is up 12% in pre-market trading. "Of course it leaked," Nathan said grimly. "Mercer wants to apply maximum pressure." He handed David his briefcase. "Have these documents scanned and uploaded to the secure server. Password protect the file with Catherine's birthday." David nodded, understanding the significance. "What about the board packets?" "Hold them until I give the signal. I want to make my case first before they see the evidence. Otherwise, Mercer's lawyers will try to block it." As they walked toward the boardroom, David lowered his voice. "Sir Hamilton Wells has been meeting privately with some of the board members this morning. I think he's trying to line up votes for the acquisition." Hamilton Wells had been chairman of the Westbrook Technologies board for 5 years. He'd been supportive of Nathan's leadership until recently, when quarterly profits had dipped due to increased investment in research and development. Wells represented Old Money, a venture capital firm that had been one of Westbrook's earliest investors. "Let him try," Nathan said. "Just make sure those files are ready when I call for them." The boardroom fell silent as Nathan entered. 12 people sat around the massive oak table, 8 board members, Victor Mercer, 2 Medicorp attorneys, and Hamilton Wells at the head. Wells, a silver-haired man in his 60s with the ruddy complexion of someone who spent weekends sailing, offered a thin smile. "Nathan, good of you to join us. We were just discussing the revised offer from Medicorp." "I'm sure you were," Nathan replied evenly, taking his seat directly across from Mercer. "But as CEO and founder, I believe I should present my recommendation before any votes are taken." Wells waved a manicured hand. Of course. But I should note for the record that the offer has been increased to $5 billion. That represents a 150% premium over our current market value." A murmur ran through the board members. For most of them, this deal would mean millions in personal profit from their equity stakes. Victor Mercer sat back in his chair, the picture of relaxed confidence. His steel-gray hair was perfectly styled, his tan face unlined despite his 62 years. The smile he directed at Nathan held no warmth. "Before Mr. Westbrook begins," Mercer said smoothly, I'd like to emphasize that our offer comes with certain time constraints. The board must vote today or we'll be forced to withdraw and pursue other acquisition targets. Trying to rush us, Victor? Nathan asked. That seems desperate. Mercer's smile tightened. Not desperate, efficient. Medicorp's shareholders expect decisive action. Hamilton Wells cleared his throat. Nathan, please proceed with your recommendation. Nathan stood, buttoning his suit jacket as he moved to the presentation screen at the end of the room. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'm here to recommend that we reject Medicorp's acquisition offer, regardless of the price. Looks of surprise and consternation passed between board members. One of them, Janet Chen, leaned forward with a frown. Nathan, $5 billion is an extraordinary offer. The fiduciary responsibility of this board is to maximize shareholder value. I understand that, Janet, but our responsibility extends beyond the next quarterly report. Nathan activated the presentation screen, displaying a graph of safety incidents involving medical devices. What I'm about to show you may be disturbing, but it's essential to understanding why this acquisition would be catastrophic for our company and for the patients who rely on our technology. For the next 20 minutes, Nathan walked the board through the evidence he and Elena had uncovered. He presented internal Medicorp documents showing how safety protocols had been compromised at acquired companies, failure rates that had been deliberately underreported to the FDA, and lawsuits that had been quietly settled to avoid public scrutiny. This isn't speculation, Nathan concluded. This is a documented pattern of behavior. Once Medicorp acquires a company, they systematically reduce safety testing to cut costs and increase margins. The result, devices that fail, patients who suffer, lives that are lost. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. Some board members looked troubled, others skeptical. Victor Mercer's face had hardened into a mask of barely controlled anger. This is outrageous, Mercer finally said, his voice cutting through the silence. These so-called documents are clearly fabricated. I don't know where you obtained this misinformation, Westbrook, but Medicorp will not tolerate defamation. One of Mercer's attorneys leaned forward. Mr. Wells, we must insist that these allegations be stricken from the record. They are unsubstantiated and potentially libelous. Hamilton Wells looked uncomfortable. Nathan, these are serious accusations. Do you have verification of these documents' authenticity? I do. Nathan nodded to David, who stood by the door. My assistant has uploaded the complete files to our secure server, including metadata that verifies their origin. But this isn't just about documents. Nathan's voice softened slightly. It's also personal. He removed Catherine's medical file from his portfolio and held it up. My wife Catherine died 5 years ago when a Metascan cardiac monitor failed to alert medical staff to her deteriorating condition. Metascan had been acquired by Medicorp 18 months earlier. After the acquisition, they reduced quality control staff by 40% and eliminated their independent testing protocol. Nathan placed the file on the table. Catherine isn't the only victim. There's Detective Michael Reeves of the San Francisco Police Department who was investigating Medicorp's safety violations 7 years ago. He died in a car accident on Highway 1 just days before he planned to take his evidence to the FBI. Victor Mercer stood abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor. This is absurd. You're accusing me of murder now. Hamilton, I've had enough of this circus. Either call the vote or Medicorp walks away. Sit down, Victor. Nathan's voice was quiet but carried such authority that Mercer actually hesitated. You haven't heard the most interesting part yet. He nodded to David again, and a new document appeared on the screen, a bank statement showing transfers from a Medicorp subsidiary to an account belonging to Alexander Reynolds. Alexander Reynolds is an alias for Gregory Mercer, Victor's brother-in-law. These payments were made 1 week before Detective Reeves' death and 3 days after. And here's the connection you'll find most interesting. Nathan changed the display to show a photograph. This is Ryan Blackwood, the man who was hired to monitor Detective Reeves' daughter after his death. He's photographed here with Victor Mercer just 3 weeks after the detective's accident. The boardroom erupted in confused voices. Hamilton Wells banged his gavel, calling for order. Nathan, these are extremely serious allegations with potentially criminal implications. I'm not comfortable proceeding without legal counsel present. I have nothing to hide, Mercer snarled. These documents are forgeries. This whole presentation is a desperate attempt by Westbrook to sabotage a deal that would benefit everyone in this room. He turned to the board members. He's asking you to walk away from millions of dollars based on conspiracy theories and doctored evidence. Janet Chen raised her hand. Nathan, where did these documents come from? How did you obtain them? This was the moment Nathan had been dreading, the question he couldn't fully answer without putting Elena at risk. They came from Detective Reeves' investigation. He preserved the evidence before his death. And how did they come into your possession? Pressed Hamilton Wells. Before Nathan could answer, the boardroom door opened. A man in a dark suit entered and walked directly to Nathan, handing him a note. Nathan read it, his face revealing nothing, then nodded to the man who left as quietly as he had arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, Nathan said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline now coursing through him, I've just been informed that FBI agents are currently executing search warrants at Medicorp headquarters and at the offices of Stanton and Mercer law firm. Victor Mercer's face drained of color. That's impossible. Is it? Nathan met his gaze unflinchingly. Detective Reeves may have died, Victor, but he wasn't the only one investigating you. The evidence he collected has been in safe hands all these years, waiting for the right moment. That moment is now. Hamilton Wells looked stunned. Nathan, are you telling us that you've been cooperating with a federal investigation? Not directly, but the evidence Detective Reeves collected, combined with what I've gathered about Catherine's case, painted a picture too clear to ignore. Nathan turned to the board. I'm asking you to postpone this vote until the FBI investigation is complete. If I'm wrong, if these documents are somehow fraudulent, then we can revisit Medicorp's offer. But if I'm right, if Victor Mercer's company has been falsifying safety data and eliminating obstacles through criminal means, do you really want Westbrook Technologies to be part of that legacy? A heavy silence fell over the room. Victor Mercer remained standing, his hands braced on the table, knuckles white with tension. This is a mistake you'll regret, Westbrook, he said, his voice low and dangerous. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, I think I do. Nathan held Mercer's gaze without flinching. A man who values profit over human life. A man who believes he's above the law. But you're not Victor. Not anymore. Hamilton Wells cleared his throat. Given these extraordinary circumstances, I move that we table the vote on Medicorp's acquisition offer pending further information. He looked around the table. All in favor. One by one, hands raised, first Janet Chen, then the others. Even board members who had seemed firmly in the pro-acquisition camp couldn't ignore the weight of the evidence and the news of the FBI raids. By the time all votes were cast, only one board member had sided with Mercer. The motion carries, Wells announced. This meeting is adjourned until further notice. Victor Mercer gathered his papers, his movements controlled, but his eyes burning with rage. As he passed Nathan on his way to the door, he paused. You think you've won, he murmured, too low for others to hear. But this isn't over. Ask Elena Reeves how her drive to Monterey is going. Oh, wait, you can't. She's not answering her phone, is she? Ice flooded Nathan's veins, but he kept his expression neutral until Mercer and his attorneys had left the room. The moment the door closed behind them, he pulled out his phone and tried calling Elena's prepaid number. No answer. David, he called to his assistant, have my car brought around immediately. As the boardroom emptied, Hamilton Wells approached, his expression troubled. Nathan, what have you gotten us into? If these allegations prove false, they won't. Nathan was already moving toward the door, to his mind racing. Hamilton, I need you to contact this man. He scribbled a name and number on a business card. James Garcia, retired SFPD. Tell him I'm on my way to Monterey and that Elena might be in danger. Wells stared at the card. Nathan, what is going on? Who is Elena? Detective Reeves' daughter. She's the one who preserved his evidence all these years. Nathan paused at the door. And if anything happens to her, I'll hold Victor Mercer personally responsible. The elevator ride to the garage level felt interminable. Nathan tried Elena's number again. Still no answer. His mind filled with worst-case scenarios, Mercer's men intercepting her on the coastal highway, forcing her off the road just as they had done to her father 7 years ago. Frank was waiting with the car. One look at Nathan's face told the driver everything he needed to know. Where to, sir? Monterey, as fast as you legally can. Nathan slid into the back seat. And be alert, we might be followed again. As the Audi pulled out of the garage and into San Francisco traffic, Nathan made one more call to Officer Martinez, who had helped Elena at Harborview Cafe. Officer Martinez, this is Nathan Westbrook. I'm a friend of Elena Reeves. I have reason to believe she may be in danger on Highway 1 between San Francisco and Monterey. The officer's voice was immediately alert. What kind of danger, Mr. Westbrook? Nathan explained the situation as succinctly as possible: Elena's drive to Monterey, the evidence she carried, and Victor Mercer's veiled threat. "I'll contact the highway patrol immediately," Martinez promised. "They can search the route. Do you know what vehicle she's driving?" "My Tesla Model S Black, California license plate, WSTBRK1. "Stay on this line, Mr. Westbrook. I'm calling it in now." Nathan heard Martinez speaking on another line, providing Elena's description and the car details to highway patrol. Minutes that felt like hours passed before the officer returned. "Highway patrol has units searching the route now. Where are you, Mr. Westbrook?" "Heading to Monterey myself, just passing through Daly City. I'll update you if we hear anything." And Mr. Westbrook, I knew Michael Reeves. If his daughter is anything like him, she's resourceful. Don't give up hope. Nathan ended the call and stared out the window at the city giving way to coastal landscape. The morning fog was burning off, revealing the rugged beauty of the Pacific coastline. Somewhere ahead, Elena might be in trouble, or worse, and it was his fault for letting her go alone. "Can we go any faster, Frank?" "Pushing it as much as I can, sir. Highway patrol is thick on this route." Nathan checked his watch. It had been over 9 hours since Elena had texted that she'd arrived safely at Garcia's place. Yet when he tried calling Garcia's number after Mercer's threat, there had been no answer there either. Something was very wrong. They passed through Half Moon Bay, the road winding closer to the ocean cliffs. Traffic thinned as they moved south, allowing Frank to increase their speed. Nathan's phone rang an unknown number. "Westbrook. Mr. Westbrook, this is Sergeant Collins with the California Highway Patrol. We've located your vehicle." Nathan's heart lodged in his throat. "And Elena, is she all right?" The vehicle was abandoned at a scenic overlook about 20 miles north of Monterey. No sign of the driver, but the officer hesitated. "There are signs of a struggle. The driver's side window was shattered and we found blood on the seat." The world seemed to tilt beneath Nathan. "Blood, how much?" "Not a lot. Consistent with an injury, not something fatal." The officer's tone was professionally detached but not unkind. "We're searching the area now. Does Ms. Reeves have any connections in Monterey, places she might go if in trouble?" "She was heading to James Garcia's house. He's a retired SFPD detective. I have the address." Nathan provided the information. "Have you checked there yet?" "We have units en route now." "Where are you, Mr. Westbrook?" "About 40 minutes from the overlook, I'd estimate." "I'll meet you there." "We'll find her, sir." Nathan ended the call, his mind racing. Elena was missing, possibly injured. His car abandoned. All because he let her go alone with evidence that could destroy Victor Mercer. "Sir," Frank's eyes met his in the rearview mirror. "Should I head to the overlook or to this Garcia's address?" Nathan considered. The overlook. The highway patrol was already checking Garcia's place. They drove in tense silence for the next 30 minutes. As they rounded a curve, Nathan saw police vehicles ahead, lights flashing at a scenic turnout overlooking the Pacific. The Tesla was their driver's door open, surrounded by yellow crime scene tape. Frank pulled up behind the police cruisers, and Nathan was out of the car before it had fully stopped. A uniformed officer intercepted him. "Sir, this is a restricted area." "I'm Nathan Westbrook. That's my car, and my friend Elena Reeves is missing." The officer's demeanor changed immediately. "Mr. Westbrook, Sergeant Collins is expecting you. This way, please." Collins was a weathered man in his 50s, with the leathery skin of someone who'd spent decades in the California sun. He shook Nathan's hand firmly. "We've been processing the scene. Based on the evidence, Ms. Reeves was forced from the vehicle approximately 10 hours ago." 10 hours. Nathan felt sick. "That's right after she texted me that she'd arrived at Garcia's place." Collins frowned. "She never made it to Garcia's. We've checked the house. It's been ransacked. No sign of Garcia or anyone else." "Then who sent the text saying she'd arrived safely?" "Most likely whoever took her. They wanted to buy time, prevent you from raising an alarm." Collins led Nathan to the Tesla. "We found this under the seat." He held up an evidence bag containing Elena's prepaid phone, the one Nathan had given her. "There's something else," Collins continued. "We found tire tracks consistent with a Ford F-150 pickup truck." "Does that mean anything to you?" Nathan's blood ran cold. "Ryan Blackwood. He drives a black F-150. He's Elena's ex-boyfriend, and he works for Victor Mercer." Collins nodded, making notes. "And you believe this connects to the evidence Ms. Reeves was transporting, evidence that's now missing?" "Not all of it," Nathan said, an idea forming. "Elena hid her father's police badge in my glove compartment before we separated. She said it was insurance. I thought she meant sentimental value, but now I wonder." With Collins's permission, Nathan opened the Tesla's glove compartment. Inside was a small leather case containing Detective Michael Reeves' SFPD badge. Nathan turned it over in his hands, remembering how Elena had found a USB drive hidden in the badge holder years ago. There has to be something here, he muttered, examining the badge carefully. As he turned it in his hands, he noticed a slight bulge in the leather backing. Sergeant, do you have a knife? Collins handed him a pocket knife, and Nathan carefully slit the leather along one edge. Inside the lining was a small memory card. She made a copy, Nathan breathed. Smart woman. Is that the evidence? Collins asked. Part of it, at least. Enough to keep the investigation going if the original was lost. Nathan handed the memory card to Collins. This needs to get to the FBI immediately. It contains evidence linking Victor, Mercer, and Medicorp to multiple crimes, including the death of Elena's father. Collins nodded. I'll have it transported under guard. But right now our priority is finding Miss Reeves. Mine too. Nathan looked out at the endless blue of the Pacific, then back to the road stretching north and south. Ryan took her, but where? We've put out an APB on Blackwood and his vehicle. Every patrol car in 3 counties is looking for them. Nathan paced beside the Tesla, his mind racing. He wouldn't take her far, not with a bleeding hostage. He'd need somewhere isolated, somewhere he could control the situation while waiting for instructions from Mercer. Any ideas? Collins asked. Nathan stopped suddenly, remembering something Elena had mentioned during their breakfast at Bayside Bistro. She said Ryan owned a hunting cabin near Big Sur. She only went there once, hated it because it was so isolated. No electricity, no cell service. That's not much to go on. Big Sur covers a lot of territory. But Ryan's vehicle registration would show any property he owns. Nathan turned to Collins, hope kindling. Can you run that search? The sergeant Arden. Already on it. We pulled Blackwood's information as soon as we identified his tire tracks. He walked to his cruiser and spoke into the radio. Nathan stared out at the ocean, willing Elena to be safe, to be the fighter he knew she was. After what seemed like an eternity, Collins returned. We've got a hit. Blackwood owns a half-acre with a cabin off Palo, Colorado Road. It's about 15 miles south of here, up in the mountains overlooking the coast. Accessible only by a private dirt road. That's it. That has to be where he took her. Nathan was already moving toward Frank's Audi. I'm going there. Collins blocked his path. Mr. Westbrook, this is a police matter now. We have tactical units preparing to move in. Then I'm going with them. Elena is there because of me, because I involved her in this fight against Mercer. Nathan met the sergeant's gaze unflinchingly. I'm not asking permission, Sergeant Collins. I'm telling you I'll be in your convoy or I'll find that cabin myself. Collins studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Stay behind our vehicles. Follow all instructions. And Mr. Westbrook, if Blackwood is as dangerous as you say, be prepared for what we might find. The convoy formed quickly, 2 highway patrol cars, a sheriff's SUV, and Frank's Audi bringing up the rear. They headed south on Highway 1, then turned inland on Palo, Colorado Road, a narrow route that wound up into the mountains overlooking the Pacific. After several miles, they turned onto an unmarked dirt road barely wide enough for a single vehicle. Dense forest closed in on both sides, branches scraping against the cars as they climbed higher into the mountains. The lead patrol car stopped, and an officer signaled for everyone to kill their engines. Collins approached the Audi, crouching beside Nathan's window. The cabin is about a quarter-mile ahead. We're going on foot from here to maintain the element of surprise. You stay with the vehicles until we secure the scene. Understood. Nathan wanted to argue, but knew the tactical sense of the plan. Understood, but if you find her, you'll be the first to know. Collins squeezed his shoulder briefly. We'll bring her back safe. The tactical team moved out silently, disappearing into the forest. Nathan and Frank waited in agonizing silence, straining to hear any sound from the direction of the cabin. 5 minutes passed. 10, then the unmistakable sound of gunfire echoed through the trees, 3 sharp cracks followed by silence. Nathan was out of the car before Frank could stop him, racing down the dirt road toward the sound. He heard Frank calling after him, but didn't slow down. All he could think about was Elena, injured, frightened, possibly worse. As he rounded a bend, the cabin came into view, a small, weathered structure with a covered porch. Police officers crouched behind trees and vehicles, weapons trained on the building. One officer spotted Nathan and moved to intercept him. Sir, you need to get back. Elena! Nathan called out, ignoring the officer. Elena, are you in there? The cabin door opened slowly. Ryan Blackwood emerged, his hands raised above his head. Blood stained his right shoulder where a bullet had found its mark. His face was a mask of pain and fury as officers swarmed him, forcing him to the ground and securing his hands behind his back. Nathan pushed past the protesting officer and ran toward the cabin. Sergeant Collins appeared in the doorway supporting a figure with his arm. Elena, her face pale but her eyes alert. A makeshift bandage wrapped her left forearm, and dried blood stained her blouse, but she was alive. Wonderfully, magnificently alive. Nathan! Her voice was hoarse but strong. How did you find me? Your father's badge, the memory card you hid inside it. He reached her in 3 long strides, gathering her carefully into his arms. I thought I'd lost you. Elena leaned into him, her body trembling slightly. Ryan was supposed to kill me after he got the evidence, but he couldn't do it. He kept stalling, waiting for Mercer to tell him what to do next. That's what saved me, his hesitation. Collins gave them a moment, then gently interrupted. Ms. Reeves needs medical attention, Mr. Westbrook, and we need her statement about what happened. Of course. Nathan kept his arm around her as they walked toward the waiting ambulance. The board meeting was postponed after we presented the evidence. The FBI is raiding Medicorp headquarters as we speak. Elena smiled wearily. Dad would be proud. He always said the truth finds a way, no matter how long it takes. As paramedics helped Elena into the ambulance, Nathan caught sight of Ryan being placed in a patrol car. Their eyes met briefly, Ryan's filled with defeat, Nathan's with a mixture of anger and pity. He told me everything, Elena said quietly, noticing the exchange. How Mercer hired him to watch me after Dad died. How it was supposed to be just surveillance, but he took it further, made it personal. She shuddered. He was never supposed to get attached. That wasn't part of the plan. The paramedic finished examining her wound. You'll need stitches, but it's not deep. We'll take you to the hospital in Monterey. Nathan climbed into the ambulance beside her. I'm coming with you. As the ambulance wound its way back down the mountain, Elena leaned her head against Nathan's shoulder. What happens now? With Mercer, with the evidence, with everything. The FBI has what they need to build a case against Mercer and Medicorp. The acquisition is dead, and once investigators analyze your father's complete files, I suspect there will be criminal charges. And Sunrise Cafe. Her voice held a note of hope that made his heart swell. Still happening, if you still want it. Elena smiled, some of the color returning to her face. I do, more than ever. A fresh start, a new chapter. The ambulance emerged from the forest onto Highway 1, sunlight streaming through the windows. The Pacific stretched out endlessly to their right, blue and eternal. Nathan took Elena's uninjured hand in his, feeling the warmth of her skin against his palm. You know, he said thoughtfully, I was thinking Sunrise Cafe needs a proper symbol. Something meaningful. Like what? Like a badge, your father's badge. Not the actual one that should stay with you, but an artistic representation. A reminder that truth and justice matter. That some things are worth fighting for. Tears glistened in Elena's eyes. I'd like that. As the ambulance continued south toward Monterey, Nathan gazed out at the meeting of land and sea, thinking about paths taken and choices made. 2 days ago, Elena Matthews had been a stranger who sat on his lap to escape an abusive ex. Now she was something else entirely, a partner, a fellow seeker of truth, perhaps someday something more intimate. What are you thinking about? Elena asked, noticing his contemplative expression. Time. Nathan replied, his hand unconsciously touching the watch Catherine had given him. How precious it is, how quickly everything can change. Elena squeezed his hand gently. My father used to say that life is made of moments that test us. It's how we respond to those tests that defines who we are. Nathan smiled. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was. Elena's eyes drifted to the ocean horizon. And I think he would have liked you. As Monterey appeared in the distance, Nathan felt something he hadn't experienced in 5 years. The quiet certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be, with exactly the right person. The road ahead would not be easy. Mercer would fight the charges. The evidence would be challenged. Elena's recovery, both physical and emotional, would take time. But for now, in this moment, they had won something precious, the chance for justice, for healing, and for a new beginning. The truth so long buried had finally found the light.